Welcome back to the Panthers.com video mailbag presented by CEENTA. Staff writer Max Henson here answering your questions as Carolina gets ready for this Monday Night Football matchup in Washington. We got our first question this week from Michael Ernest, who asks, what should we do with Kelvin Benjamin? Patience, I think, is the key word. And for Kelvin, this is just his second full season that he's coming up on right now. So I think that's something you have to keep in mind when you're evaluating his development. He's still very early on in that process, and he's made some big plays early in his career. I think the expectations for him have always been very, very high after he made such an instant impact as a rookie. Then, of course, went through the season-ending ACL injury before it even got started in training camp last year. And this year, yes, he's had his ups and downs. I know you look at that San Diego game, a lot of people had some things to say about his effort after the interceptions, or the first one that ended up being an interception. And Kelvin talked about the fact that, yeah, even though he thought the guys were down, he should continue to play through the whistle. So he understands, that he needs to continue to grow as a player in this league and mature and become more refined in his technique. There's a lot of work still that needs to be done. There's a lot of room for him still to grow. And I think that's what all the coaches that we've talked to have said about Kelvin. As good a player as he is right now, there's still so much more that he can be doing as a receiver in this league. And I think that's the key thing going forward with Kelvin, is just having some patience, understanding that he's still a young player in this league, and that if he continues to apply the work ethic that the coaches think he has in him, then he can be really special. We got our next question from Billy Gondo, who says, what's it going to be like for the receivers to be up against one of their former teammates and friend on Monday night? Well, Kelvin's next challenge is, of course, Josh Norman, and that's somebody we've been talking about all throughout the week here. Everybody's been talking about it in Washington as well, the matchup between Josh and his former team. And when you look at guys like Kelvin and Devin, Ted Ginn, Philly Brown, all these guys who are familiar with Josh, were friends with him here in Carolina, it's definitely going to be an interesting evening seeing him on the other side of the field. And we know what kind of competitor Josh Norman is. And when you look at Kelvin specifically, we know the kind of battles he had with Josh down in Spartanburg in training camp. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see Josh go at it against these wide receivers that he used to go up against in practice all the time. And I think it's about really containing the emotions as best you can. Obviously, it's going to be an emotionally charged night when you talk about that matchup specifically between Josh and the wide receivers. I think it's going to come down to who can focus and execute and not get too caught up in all that, allow themselves to make some big plays that could end up being a difference in what many expect to be a very close game. Got our last question from JB, who says, will Norman really have a major impact on the game? When we talk about a corner who's as skilled and talented as Josh Norman is, a lot of times opposing offenses don't go after that player. But I think with Cam Newton in this Panthers offense, they definitely want to challenge Josh. And there's, of course, this competitiveness between Cam Newton and Josh Norman that's going to play out on Monday night. Cam talked about the fact that he's going to have to rein that in at times, the need to try to challenge Josh, because he's got to, of course, play smart. But even beyond just the plays as they happen, I think you're going to see, of course, Josh try to put on a show. And that's what we know about Josh Norman throughout his time in Carolina. The guy lives for the cameras, the limelight. He has fun with it. And, you know, in this type of matchup with so much emotion for him, he's definitely going to play to that in front of his home crowd. So I would expect it definitely to be a major storyline throughout the game. And we'll see what it comes down to in key moments, whether or not Josh is targeted by the Panthers, whether or not Kelvin Benjamin is matched up against him and makes a big play on him. We'll see if he's one of the main characters in the outcome of this game. But one way or another, you know Josh Norman is going to be a talking point when it's all said and done. Thanks for the question this week, everybody. We'll do it again next time, right here on Panthers.com.